VTech Taster Day.
Okay, so in this video we are going to show you how to create your own film review, and here's an example. So I'm going to work through how to create something very similar to this 127 hours review, which is done in the kind of house style of Total Film magazine. So we'll be copying a number of the different elements like that block quote, the header, the columns of text, the footers at the bottom where it says, you know, totalfilm.com. So in order to do that, we need to start InDesign. So if we click on the little InDesign ID logo at the dock at the bottom of your screen, it will then open InDesign, which may take some time. So whilst this is happening, you can be thinking about which film you want to select for this task. So you can either choose your favourite film or the last film that you've seen that you thought was fantastic. So now that InDesign is open, we've got a couple of things to select. So create new and click on document, and it'll bring up a new window. So we only want to create one page, and we want that size to be A4, and we want to put in 6 columns. If you click on more options on the right, it'll also have bleed and slug. Just make sure the bleed is on 0, and we won't worry too much about what that means at the moment. If you click OK, we then have the page appear on screen. So the first thing we want to do is find a central image like the example. So if we click on Safari and open up Google, we can then type in 127 hours images, and then we'll look for an image. So I've already got one, so go to File, Place, find where you've saved your image, double click, and then click where you want it to appear on the page. If you double click, you'll get like a gold border around your box. This will allow you to change the size of the image. The blue box is what's called a bounding box. That will change how much of the image we can see. Just change by right clicking, change it to high quality display. Also, another tip is hold down Shift when you're changing the size of the image to constrain the properties. So it means that you're not warping or distorting the image, which stretches it, basically makes them look quite weird. So I've just changed the bounding box, so we're cropping some of that image. If you press W, you can hide the rules on the page, so the rulers and the guides. So the first thing we want to do, now that we've got our image in place, is create that little header that says screen. So back to Safari, and we want to go to a website called dafont.com, because it's obviously very cool, because it's called Da Font. And if you type in mermaid, you'll find the font that I'm using, and I'll type in screen so I can preview it. Click on download, that'll then pop up in your downloads folder. Click on that folder and then double click on the TTF file. So if you double click on that, click, it'll then have a box that appears, a window, click on install font. If this window comes up, just hit install checked and you'll be fine. So we've now got that font available within InDesign. So we'll create a new text box. So just click on the T, the type tool, and click and drag to create a new box, and we'll type in screen. So I'm selecting the mermaid font. I'm going to change the size because obviously that's a little bit too small. That's near enough the same size as the example. Just going to move that into place. There we go. That's near enough, right? There's the example. So the example's a little bit, it's actually a little bit bigger. So I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to change the size. If it disappears, it means that the bounding box isn't big enough for the text. So don't worry, just change the size of that blue box. I'll just align that with the margin on the page. Now the only other difference there is that the where it says screen, the letters have got too big a gap between them. So you can change that using, we'll just get rid of that, using the character box there. Now if you want to find that, go to Window, and then just slide down to where it says types, and then you'll see characters being ticked and paragraphs being ticked. So that means that the character and paragraph windows are open. If it doesn't have a tick next to it, just click on character and this window will appear. So we then click on this little box, so it says minus, and you'll see that it's changing the space between those letters. Just going to change that a little bit more, I think, just so it matches the example that we've got there. So the next thing we want to do is every film reviewed and rated. So if we type that in, every film, and then we highlight that, we want to change the color. So we're going to make the text a little bit smaller, and then we're going to slide that in just above where it says screen. Then we're going to highlight that text and click on the T just above it and change that color to red. And then we'll click and drag that just a little more precisely into place. And there we go, that's our header complete. Right, so if we select the type tool again, we click and drag to create a new text box. We'll put the caption on this image, rather hilarious caption about wiring, obviously making fun of James Franco's appearance. Now when you type the text in, you'll notice that the color defaults to black and the size defaults to size 12. So we are going to change the size of this text and the color of the text to white, because obviously the black isn't very easy to read against that image. So whatever image you choose, just think about the color of text that you're using and make sure that the caption is easy to read. You also notice it's hyphenated. In the paragraph window in the bottom right there, we just changed that to hyphenate. And back to the window, types again and then paragraph if that window isn't on your screen. That'll allow you to tick, hyphenate, or untick where it says hyphenate, so it doesn't hyphenate your text. I'm just going to change that bounding box so it's a bit slimmer. And there we go, caption is in place. Change the text a little bit, still a little bit too big. And there we go, that's a bit more like our example. Just line that up against the margin. And there we go, caption is complete. So we want to create the lines that box the text at the bottom of the page in. So if you go to line tool, it's just located underneath the text tool. And then all you need to do is click and drag to create your line. Just make sure that the line is straight. And we'll do that using the margin, again, using the rulers to guide us. It's 0.1 at the minute. We're going to make that a little bit thicker, just using the option next to the color. So we'll leave it black. And then we want to create a line at the bottom as well, just to create that margin where we're going to put the name of the magazine, the footer. So we'll click and drag, just making sure that that's straight. You can change the thickness to 0.5. It doesn't need to be as precise as 1 or 2, but looking at the example, that looks closer to 1. If you use Command plus and Command minus will allow you to zoom in and out. So we noticed when we zoomed in that that line wasn't very straight, so I'm going to redraw that line. And I'm actually going to leave it as 1 rather than 0.5. So if we zoom in, go down to that corner, we can see we just need to add a little bit. So we'll click on that and drag it. And that's that. Margin's complete. You can see that's quite precise. Let's zoom back out. So we're getting closer to our finished product. Just a few other things to add, just the columns of text, the header, the star rating, the verdict box in the bottom right, and the what's called block quote or pull quote. So we're just going to create a white rectangle. So draw a rectangle and change the fill color to white, making sure that there is no fill on the outline. And then we're going to use the same font for the title as we did for screen. So we're just going to use Mermaid font, and you can choose a different font if you like by going to DaFont. You should know how to install that font now. It's going to change the size of the text. So 127 hours, so we're going to highlight that. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Again, bounding box has just changed the size of that text, and remember we'll probably change the spacing between those letters as well, because it looks a little bit ugly with all that space between the letters. So you're just adjusting that using the option in the paragraph box, which we brought up earlier. If you don't know how to find that paragraph box, remember window, types, and then paragraph, and that will appear. And I'm just going to make that a fraction smaller. The spacing smaller. So then if we click on the white box, it can be a little bit awkward when you've got a box in front of it, and we'll just cut that so it's more precise around the title of the article. So again, we're getting closer to our finished product. So we want to create our columns of text. So just with the type tool, click and drag and draw a box. And then if you control click, you'll be able to select fill with placeholder text. This is quite a typical series of text that's used to kind of fill in for where the feature writing or copy, as it's referred to, would appear. So we've made the box a wee bit bigger, so we just want to fill again with placeholder text, just to fill that box. Now we want 3 columns of text, and because this is too big, we're not going to fit the 3 columns in. Also the writing is a little bit big, so we'll just get rid of those 2. We'll make that column just a little bit smaller. We'll copy that. And then if we just leave enough space for that star rating, and you'll see that those green lines appear. That means that we're lining up those columns accurately. If you don't see the green line appear to link those columns together, then they're not in line. Then you're probably going to end up with loads of different columns of different sizes. I'm going to get rid of them because I'm going to copy them again, because just to make sure that all the properties are the same, because I'm going to make that text slightly smaller, which means we can fit more in. It's also more like the example that we had. And again, I'm going to fill with placeholder text just to make sure that box is full. So if I copy that, slide that into place, there we go, that's our 3 columns of text. Pressing W to bring up the guides and to hide them. So W will bring them up, and pressing W again will hide them. So all I've got left to do is to create the footer, the bit where it says verdict, the block quote or pull quote, and the star rating and byline. So we're going to create some space to put the verdict in. Selecting the line tool again, which you used to draw the border. And just create a line. And again, we are going to change this to 0.5 because it's quite a thin line that's in place on the example. So if we click and press Command C and Command V, we can copy that, and we've got those 2 little lines in place now to separate out the verdict. So if we zoom in, if we put a text box in, and just make the text a little bit smaller, you can see that the verdict is actually in red. So it's a different coloured font. So if we click the T and select red, and then type in capitals the verdict, and then we'll copy some of the text over, making sure that it's back to black. In fact, it's grey, so we just use tint and it'll change that black to grey. So leave sick bags, bring hankies. And then it's got a comment about the director. Without softening. The grilling content, boil, blah blah blah. So we won't put all that in just for this example. We'll take the hyphenate off again using the paragraph window that I showed you earlier. So we're going to copy that so we've got the same size box below. And then we're going to get rid of that text. But a little bit smaller for the details about the film itself. So things like the director, the certification, so is it 15, is it an 18? Just make sure that you don't have tint left on, so we're going to bring that up to 100, make sure it's red. And then, so the first thing is certificate. Zoom in just to see that more precisely. And then it's director, stars, writer, or screenplay. make sure it's on black. And again, just make sure that that tint, because that's come back, is at 100. So it's nice. Full colour. And if we highlight that, below the font, you can actually change it to bold or italic. So we're going to change that to bold. And then we're going to bring it back to regular. And we're going to put in that this film was certificate 15. And the director, so we'll go back to bold. We'll type in director. And then we'll go back to regular. Danny Boyle. And so on and so forth. So that's how you're putting in the information there. So all we've got left to do is the footer, the block quote, and the header. So we're just going to put the footer in, just draw another text box. This is going to be quite a small size text. It's not really meant to stand out. So we've got the page number, the name of the magazine, page 62. This is Total Film. In February 2011, because that's when 127 Hours was released in the UK. So just going to copy that box again, just so it saves the size of the text. And it also means we can line it up a lot easier. So we'll just change that, because it's the opposite side of the page. I'll change it to right align. And then here, we're going to have the name of the website where we can subscribe. So here we've got www.totalfilm.com/subs for subscribe. And we'll just need to line that up. So again, using the green lines to kind of help us line that up, you can see that's lined up with the box on the left. So it's all nice and organized. So only a couple things left to do. Just going to make sure that that's lined up with the line on the margin on the left. So again, if you use the green line, although it doesn't look wholly accurate, so we'll zoom in just to be more precise. There we go. That's that in place now. So we've only got the block quote and the byline to do. So if we draw another text box, choose life, choose a better quality knife, ... So another example of Total Film's brand of humour, which ties in with its target audience. And we're just going to use the same font, Mermaid font, that we've used before. Just make sure that's a little bit bigger. And then we'll move that over, making sure that we leave space for our little ratings box, which we're going to create. So like the white box above where we put 127 hours in place, we're going to create a rectangle to house the star ratings. So rectangle tool. And rather than filling that box, we're just going to have a black outline. So just make sure that's in black. And we'll just keep that on 1. And then if we zoom in, we can move stuff around, make it a little bit more organized. So the same amount of space at the top and bottom of that box. So we're going to create a star to put in there. So click on the polygon tool and you can see that I've already got mine set to star. So you want to click and hold, and then you can change the amount of spacing between the points. So if we change from 5 to 6 points or 7, so we want a 5-point star, and there's the original sort of polygon shape. And then if using the arrow keys, we can change the spacing in between the points so it looks like a star. So use the pointing tool, click and hold shift so it doesn't stretch the image of your star, and we'll just bring that over into the box that we've created to hold the stars for the star rating. So we don't want a black outline. You might find it a bit difficult when you're working to get these into position. It's a little bit frustrating, as you can tell. Right, so that's in place now. And we don't want a black outline, so we're going to change no outline, we're going to change the fill to red for this one. And it's out of 5, so I quite liked 127 hours. So I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 stars, purely for the part where he cuts his arm off No, obviously it's a very good performance. So we're going to see past the gruesome, violent part of the film, and we're going to give it 4 out of 5. So just copying these stars and put them into place, and we'll fine tune it in a minute and get them all aligned, but we need the 5 stars first. So because it's 4 out of 5, we're going to change that last one to a black outline. If we zoom back out, you can see 4 out of 5 stars. It's a bit wonky at the minute, so we need to zoom in, and this is a bit tricky. We want to zoom in and just align those stars. This might take you a little while. A bit of patience just to align these. Let's get that last one into place. There we go. We're just going to change the bounding box just to make that a bit more precise. And then we'll bring that text over just to be a little bit closer. And there we go. There's our 4 out of 5 stars. Just change that to a thinner outline because it looks a bit too dark. And there we go. That's our star rating in place. So we're almost there. We've got our columns of text. The last thing we need to put in place is the block quote. So rectangle tool, draw a rectangle, or you can use the type tool to draw a rectangle. So click on the type tool, click in the middle of the rectangle that we've just drawn. I've just lost that there, so if you press W you can see the blue box, and then double click and it'll allow you to add some text. So we'll center align that. We'll make the text a bit bigger because this quote's meant to stand out. It's grey, so we're going to change the tint on the colour. And here we have the quote. So we'll just type that text into place. Thus. So you need to think about what sort of catchy statement you might have included within your review if we had time to write it. So we need that, obviously. We can't see the text as it currently stands. It's just sitting behind the columns of text. So we're going to use something called text wrap to help that stand out. So just make that a tad smaller so we can see all the text that we've typed. And then we go to Window and go to Text Wrap. Now if you select the third one from the left, it will use the bounding box to select where we want to outline it. And if you click W, you can see your finished page. And there we have it. That's our finished review. So the last thing you need to do is export it. File, export, give it a sensible name. My review is fine. And then export, OK. There was just some overlapping text behind what we'd put in, which will be the placeholder text. And then if you can't find it, if you just open up the hard drive and click My Review, it should locate your review. I've saved it in the Total Film Task folder. So if you double click to open that up, there you have it. It's your finished review. Hooray! Well done. Cue the dramatic titles.
VTech Taster Test.